This cage is where Cassidy Rainwater was held, tortured, and dismembered like an animal.
I'm hearing about a guy who's got women locked up and possible torture, and I don't understand what makes people get like that.
Hello and welcome back. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated. In today's video, we'll dive into a terrifying case that took place in Missouri. It all started with an anonymous tip to the FBI, containing photos of a missing woman. Following this tip, police found a slaughterhouse deep in the woods. Not much evidence was found, but at least justice was served.
I want them to know that we all wish them a horrible, tormented life in prison.
Our story begins in Dallas County. Located in the center of Missouri, this area is sparsely populated, with small towns surrounded by dense forests and farmland. It's the kind of place where someone could disappear without a trace and where secrets could easily be kept. So our case began on September 16, 2021, when the FBI received an anonymous tip. They immediately forwarded it to the Dallas County Sheriff's Office. The tipster claimed to have found disturbing images on the dark web, which showed a young woman trapped in a cage, tortured, and ultimately murdered. The tipster also suggested that this woman was Cassidy Rainwater, a 33-year-old mother who had gone missing from Hamilton, Missouri, about 3 hours away. Cassidy was last seen in July, but her disappearance wasn't reported until late August. She had a tough life, growing up in Harrisonville, having her first child at 17, and struggling with homelessness. The tip immediately led Dallas County Sheriff's Office to a suspect, James Phelps, a 58-year-old man who lived alone on Moon Valley Road. The Sheriff's Office had already questioned James when Cassidy was initially reported missing. His property, isolated deep in the woods, was a ramshackle place that many locals considered strange. When officers first approached him, he admitted that Cassidy had been staying with him for a while. James described her as down on her luck, and he had been helping her get back on her feet. However, one night in late July, Cassidy told him she was heading to Colorado, and that was the last time he saw her. He thought she went back to her family, leaving without so much as a goodbye. Back in August, Dallas police didn't suspect foul play. Despite James's weird lifestyle and his creepy property, there was no evidence to suggest anything sinister. After taking his word, the officers left, but quietly kept him under their radar. When FBI passed on the chilling tip about Cassidy Rainwater, Dallas police immediately thought about James. A search warrant was filed, and they were ready to return. On September 17th, the police's visit to James's property was nothing like the first. Armed officers stormed the remote Moon Valley Road, their presence far more intimidating this time. James was caught off guard. He stood frozen as police smacked the search warrant in his face. He knew his life was over. Once inside the property, police gradually recognized it was the very place from the photographs they'd received. They knew they were standing in the same spot where Cassidy's torment had been captured. The photos, which were shocking in their brutality, showed Cassidy partially naked and confined in a cage meant for animals. Other images revealed her body being suspended on a gantry crane, a tool usually used for gutting wild animals. The photos were disturbing, showing Cassidy's body being mutilated and dismembered. The cage and other grim items were still in place, but Cassidy was nowhere to be found. Investigators took James's phone, his computers, and other digital devices, which contained even more horrifying content. Videos from a shed at night showed Cassidy's screams and blood all over the place. Investigators scoured every cabinet, drawer, and table. One officer, while searching the fridge, came across something extremely chilling. Among the usual stuff in a fridge, he found wrapped packages of meat with no labels, except for the cryptic writing 7/24, which referred to the day Cassidy was last seen. Later, lab tests confirmed the meat was Cassidy herself. As investigators dug deeper, they realized what they had found was just the tip of the iceberg. Who uploaded and sold images of Cassidy on the dark web? Was this an accidental murder? Or was Cassidy not the only victim? It's truly incredible to think that all of this came to light because of one anonymous tipster who simply sent an email to the FBI titled Cassidy. James was arrested immediately, but he remained silent, refusing to speak to the investigators. But James was not living alone. He had a housemate, a 56-year-old long-haul truck driver named Timothy Norton. James and Timothy's background is quite a mystery. It seems they met each other when attending Skyline High School, with James a few grades ahead of Timothy. Over the years, they had become lifelong friends, and neighbors described them as being involved in the seedier side of things. After high school, James enlisted in the Army and eventually settled on Moon Valley Road, where he had lived since at least the early 90s. On the other hand, Timothy joined the Marines after graduation. Following his service, he got married twice before becoming a truck driver. He had a few run-ins with the law in the early 90s, but they were pretty minor, like bad checks or unpaid debts. Eventually, he moved in with James, and the two men kept to themselves in the woods, their lives hidden from the rest of the world. 2 days after James's arrest, on September 19th, police took Timothy in for questioning. He appeared quite shocked by the turn of events. He claimed to know nothing about Cassidy or the horrific images. However, police quickly found evidence that proved otherwise. Timothy's phone had been at the property on July 24th, the day Cassidy was last seen. When confronted with this, Timothy's story immediately changed. Unlike his silent housemate, Tim started to talk a lot. He admitted that he knew exactly what had happened to Cassidy. On July 24th, when he was in the house, James came out of a shed and asked him to help restrain a girl. The screams that followed would haunt him forever. The search of James and Timothy's property stretched on for weeks, and while the authorities uncovered more than they expected, there were also things they could never recovered. In a strange twist, one of the buildings on the property burned down on October 4th. A bomb squad was called to the scene. It turned out that James and Timothy had booby-trapped their own home. An officer accidentally triggered one of the tripwires, but luckily, no one was injured. Upon further investigation, tripwires connected to improvised incendiary devices were found scattered throughout the property. James and Timothy must have set up these traps after Cassidy's death. If anyone, especially the police, came here, the entire crime scene would be erased. As fires were set throughout the property, it made the investigation even harder. Much of the evidence was destroyed in the flames, and it became nearly impossible to create a clear timeline of events or to fully understand the extent of what these men had been involved in. Throughout the investigation, both the Dallas County Sheriff's Office and the FBI kept a tight lid on information, revealing very little to the public. This secrecy fueled wild speculation. The most chilling part of it all was the disturbing images of Cassidy found on the dark web. Who had seen these photos? Who had posted them? To this day, the anonymous tipster remains unidentified, though it was believed they were in Germany. But with VPN, they could have easily hidden their true location. Rumors quickly spread, ranging from underground, hostel-style kidnapping rings to a black market for human meat. The details of Cassidy's captivity seemed to support these dark theories. She had been held in a cage, her photos circulated on the dark web, and after her death, her dismembered body was kept in the fridge. The chilling thought crossed many minds. Were they planning to sell pieces of her online?
If law enforcement and others would give us more information, then maybe they wouldn't have to resort to that kind of filling in.
James's profile on a BDSM website raised even more suspicions. He literally said, "Looking for a good person to be a good serving girl, to be a live-in servant girl in town, to live with me." Was he using the site to contact potential victims or to recruit people to participate in these horrific acts? Some began to wonder, could BDSM have been a cover for something far more sinister, like murder? The fire that destroyed the crime scene only fueled more wild conspiracy theories. Some people were quick to claim that it had been deliberately set by law enforcement to cover up the involvement of powerful local figures. This was part of a larger, more complex operation that had been going on for years. Each time the investigation came close to revealing something bigger, a local bigwig would intervene to shut it down. James and Timothy did not act alone. Their accomplices may live across America and even as far as Germany. Dallas County Sheriff had enough. He angrily posted this on social media. Addressing fake news. There is a lot of misinformation and rumors regarding the Cassidy Rainwater being circulated across social media and various news platforms. While I understand the impatience and curiosity of the people, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. It's not a good idea to listen to a crime reporter or blogger or TikTok videos that is sitting in their apartment or their mommy and daddy's basement eating great value cheese puffs and drinking box wine with grand intentions of being a social media superstar. If you are hanging on every word in this type of crap, believing it to be fact, you're living in a fantasy world. This isn't a TV series or movie where we go to commercial break and have lab results in 15 minutes. Searching a crime scene for 7 days, 24 hours a day takes that long, 168 hours. 99.9999% of what has been posted to social media is crap. Law enforcement officers must play within the rules of the American criminal justice system. While the system has its faults, it's still the best system in the world. We are judged by a jury of our peers with a judge presiding over the case, a prosecutor who presents the case, and a defense attorney who defends the client. This is where all facts of the case come from, not TikTok, Facebook, or any other social media outlet. No, you are not entitled to a play-by-play ongoing investigation. If you want to be in the know, we are hiring along with every other law enforcement agency in the country. We are working in the real world, and this is an active, ongoing investigation. When all members of the prosecution team believe that it is appropriate to release information, we will keep you informed. Until that time, I can tell you we have all parties involved with Cassidy Rainwater's case in jail, and we expect additional charges to be filed in the coming days. If you are not a resident and are planning a trip into our beautiful county to sightsee, remember a few things. While the citizens of Dallas County are friendly, neighborly, caring, and kind people, we do not like those who show up to trespass, litter, vandalize, harass, or destroy property. If this is your intention, you are not welcome here, and we will prosecute you for this. Sheriff Rice. Finally, Timothy Norton gave a full statement to the police. He explained that on July 24th, James had called him over to help restrain Cassidy. According to Timothy, Cassidy had been asleep on the living room floor, making it the perfect opportunity to subdue her. Timothy held her feet down while James climbed on top of her and strangled her to death. Afterward, they took her body outside and hoisted it onto a gantry crane, the kind typically used to butcher wild animals. Then James began the brutal dismemberment. Once her body was completely chopped up, they moved her remains to the bathroom and placed them in the bathtub. From there, they sliced her into pieces, storing her in the freezer as if she were nothing more than a slab of meat.
Mr. Norton, we're setting your case for preliminary hearing on November 5th, and that will be at 9:30 a.m. We'll see you here in the courtroom on that date. That's all I have for you today, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
After one of his court appearances, Timothy Norton spoke to a local news station, and his words were unsettling.
The next thing I know, he was choking her and things were going sideways. And if you looked into his eyes, that would have been the last thing you'd ever wanted to do was cross him at that point in time. It just kind of happened that things, like I told somebody else once, it kind of went sideways. I deserve to die. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready to take a life. You know, everybody harps at me, you know, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster. They don't know who I am.
Timothy also revealed to investigators that at one point, he and James went to some Walmarts in search of victims. This only fueled the belief that their crimes weren't isolated and that they had been doing this for much longer than anyone had suspected. For some reason, Cassidy trusted James enough to stay with him. Why she did that, especially considering what James was capable of, remains unclear. But one thing is certain. Timothy's own words of how Cassidy's death unfolded, her being asleep and held down while being strangled, doesn't align with the dark web photos, showing Cassidy alive and in a cage. She wasn't killed quickly. She had been tortured. James Phelps and Timothy Norton faced serious charges including first-degree kidnapping, moving a corpse, inflicting injury, and of course, murder.
There's evidence in this case that this particular defendant online
is talking with potential victims that he's attempting to persuade to appear at his location or to make themselves available to be picked up by himself or a co-defendant to be brought back to his location, where he discusses with them that he will in fact harm them or kill them.
Even though they were caught and imprisoned, it's hard to say whether Cassidy truly received justice, because there was no death penalty.
There's no other sentence eligible in this case besides life without parole. So we knew if he entered a plea, that would be the sentence.
Norton entered that plea in court Tuesday.
You agree that you did assist in her murder by strangulation?
Yes.
In April 2023, both James Phelps and Timothy Norton secured plea deals, with James accepting an Alford plea. An Alford plea is when a defendant maintains their innocence, but acknowledges that the evidence against them is strong enough that a trial would likely lead to a conviction. James and Timothy's plea deals meant that they would only be sentenced for the murder of Cassidy, not for other crimes like terrorizing and kidnapping. Without those additional charges, the death penalty was taken off the table. As a result, both men received life sentences without the possibility of parole. While this spared the family from a long trial, it also meant that the full extent of the story may never be revealed. James and Timothy will die in prison, just as Cassidy did in captivity. But with no trial, many crucial details will remain buried. Missouri as a state has a surprisingly high number of disappearances relative to its population. What makes it even more eerie is the tragic fact that Cassidy's mother, Tracy Wawasuk, went missing in 2007. Tracy was only 43, just 10 years older than Cassidy was when she was killed. Tracy's body was found by a farmer in a field near Lebanon, only 30 miles from Moon Valley. An investigation was launched, but no details were confirmed, including how she died.
Tracy Wawasuk went missing in 2007. Her bones were later found scattered across a field near Lebanon a year later. Here's what the then Laclede County Sheriff told Color 10 in 2008.
It was unusual.
Some of the statements made by people, but we'll just have to go on with the new evidence we have, see where that leads us.
Tracy Wawasuk's boyfriend at the time mentioned that Tracy often went out into the woods looking for artifacts, like arrowheads, and she simply disappeared during one of her walks. No one was ever arrested in connection with Tracy's death, and it's still an open case. The fact that both Cassidy and her mother were dismembered so close to each other adds an unsettling layer to the story. Was there a darker force at play? Could it be related to an occult, a conspiracy, or a dark web ring? The connection between these two tragic deaths, along with the discoveries at Moon Valley, points to something far bigger than just two men hiding in the woods. In connection to this case, the School of Metaphysics has come up multiple times. This organization, founded in 1998, is difficult to define. It claims to focus on living your best life through grounded spiritual practices. Their teachings involve evolving consciousness through life experiences. Some people label them as a non-violent, hippie-like cult that only eats fruit and promotes peace, while others believe there's more to it, that this is just the image they want to project. The group has locations in cities across the Midwest, with a few in remote areas, including one near Moon Valley Road. What's even stranger is the series of bizarre videos associated with them.
The minds of the Yucatan in Central America foresaw the ending of a great world age. As Mother Earth ascends to a higher consciousness, she will bring forth the Great Awakening.
As strange as this whole story is, the School of Metaphysics is just a group of people trying to live their lives away from the chaos of the world. However, this group doesn't seem well liked in the town, and some even describe them as cult-like. There are rumors that they use their remote properties to hide their secrets, perhaps to conceal what they're really up to. The word occult often comes up in conversations about them. Perhaps James had some involvement with the group too. He was connected with the Universal Life Church, which is different, but if he was exploring spirituality, he might have crossed paths with the School of Metaphysics at some point. It's strange how so much darkness seems to surround such a quiet, out-of-the-way place. And now, the case is officially closed. With both James Phelps and Timothy Norton locked away for life, Neither of them is talking. This case is one of the most upsetting and unsettling we've come across, not only for what happened to Cassidy, but also for the unanswered questions about what else was happening on Moon Valley Road. The truth is probably far worse than we could ever imagine, because they even booby-trapped their property just to ensure their secrets would never be found. Now, those secrets will remain buried forever, unless the police choose to release more information. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Please share your thoughts in the comments. If there's a case you're interested in, let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.